Yo, yo.
Boom.
All right, we are
There we
back
go.
live. Apologies to any viewers, but we had a little technical difficulty for a second there, but we're back in action. So just really quick, gonna tweet this out, fellas. But one thing I just wanted to chat with you guys while we wait for some people to pop on and ask some questions is we were talking a little bit about how it's nice to be able to kind of live our lives again a little bit off this COVID pandemic, and obviously it's still prevalent in our communities, and we got to really make sure that we're staying safe out there. But what do you guys think? Like, what are you guys thinking? It's kind of the elephant in the room. The season may or may not happen, of course, but it's something that we're going to have to attack, right? Like, it's easy to avoid because it's really, really awful to think about, but it's something that we're going to have to attack. So first off, Jordan, why don't we start with you? Do you think we're going to have football? Like, do you think that there's time to pull this off with what the players have been coming out and saying and whatnot?
I think it's just kind of a matter of when. I don't think they're going to push it back necessarily, but I think they're definitely going to have a season. We're talking about a sport, especially where, like, even though weather's an issue for the sport, it's not an issue as far as play goes. Like, this is a sport that plays October to February, and when you really think about it, they could play September to February. They could play October to March. They could play November to April. Like, it's not really a condition based sport where they really need that environment to play. On top of that, it's just revenue, man. Like, it's just money. That's what it comes down to, is that they need the money, the players need the money, the league needs the money. The league doesn't really need the money, but I'm sure they'd like the money too, right? It's not like other sports where there's not as much money at stake. Like, you look at the NBA, they got to play, man. They got to play 10 games to get their full TV revenue. And so that's why they're playing those 10 games or 8 games or whatever. So they can hit that 70 mark, get that full revenue, not have to give any of that money back. So when it comes down to it, all these teams are all about their money. That's what it's always going to come down to. But the NFL especially, they're not going to try and give any money away because they're not going to get any of it back.
Good call. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I just don't see, as right or wrong, I just don't see a way where the season doesn't happen, at least starting out some games. I think for me, it'd be more likely to see the season start up and then kind of have to end abruptly if something didn't go right, similar to what we saw, in mid-March with the NBA, how that just kind of came on really quickly, right? So to me, that's the more likely scenario if we're talking about missing games. Definitely, it was cool to see the players kind of band together and seem to coordinate to, have the right priorities as far as just people being safe, healthy, not only themselves, but especially their families as well and people that they're close with outside of football. So that's, I think the more likely scenario. This thing's a juggernaut, right? There's so much money behind it. So I just don't see a way where, they're not going to start the season at least. But it would not surprise me if we saw some sort of abrupt shutdown of the season. If some, we've talked about what are we going to do with, potentially extra IR positions in fantasy and things like that. Well, what happens if, half a team, becomes positive or, 10% of a team even, right? It really becomes scary for everybody involved. And, if one team is going to cancel games, it's got to have a ripple effect. I don't see how, we can pick and choose games at that point. So it's a tough one. It's a wait and see game. And, I just hope that, we do whatever we can to minimize the impact that's already happening out there across the board. So I do think the season will start on time, but definitely wouldn't be surprised if we saw some sort of shutdown come up.
Yeah, that would be kind of a tease if we got like 4 games in and they decided to just pull the plug on it. I've heard some things floated about having like hub cities out there, having 4 hub cities. I think Fantasy Mansion actually put that out there and put out a plan on one of his pods, and I think that could potentially work. It would be really interesting to see where they went, and what the curve is like there, because it's not going the greatest down there, and the growth and the pandemic is just spreading way worse down there than it is up here. I mean, thankful for us, but we definitely feel for all of our friends down south and hope that they're all safe. But I'm with you. I think the season's definitely going to start, and I think they'll get what they can on the field, and that depth is going to be key. Like not even just in fantasy, obviously, in real football, having depth is going to be major key. And these guys are going to probably run through the practice squads a little bit, but it's going to be they got to get it done, because all that money floating around, like Jordan said, is too much to pass up when the players are just ready, right?
Yeah, and I think to kind of like talk about what Ben was saying is that like, and similar to what I was saying, is that there's no one trying to compete with the NFL either. Everyone knows they can't compete with them. If the NFL comes back, they're top dog, whether they play, no matter what time of the year they play. So for them especially, they really have no concerns. The NBA, they could take a hit if they start in January and the NFL is still going into March for some reason. But I don't know if we can go into bubble cities. It's a great idea, but ideally the bubble cities would be in the South. The South is the worst part of the states right now. You know, Florida, Texas, Arizona, that's where you'd want to have your bubble sites where it's warm, where teams don't have to deal with cold weather, hopefully have better facilities, better health as far as sickness, all these different things go. But they're all the worst areas in the states right now, which is crazy. But that situation they're in, and they'll have to figure that out. But for me, I mean, it just comes down to is kind of when are the games going to be played? We don't know that. And how does that affect fantasy? Because like, especially if imagine you're doing like a redraft league and one of your players is you draft him, he's going to play, he gets coronavirus and he drops out for the whole season. You know, we're not just talking about like 2 weeks and he just says, fuck it. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to risk it. It's not worth it. Like I already got coronavirus, especially imagine if he got it bad too. Like some guys, you know, they're prone to worse conditions. They may be hospitalized, at which point there's no way you're coming back to football. No amount of money is going to make you come back if you're hospitalized from COVID, from playing in the NFL. And I'd be curious if the NFL gets sued by any of these people because, like, I don't know. I'm sure they'll have to sign waivers and all this stuff, but you never know. If someone gets hospitalized, man, that'll be it. Like if you see one of your teammates get hospitalized, you'll be like thinking about it too. Is it worth the 800,000 or 600,000 you're probably playing for? Most of these guys, probably not.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting too because they're giving that 3-week time span for anybody who tests positive. So it's going to be an interesting kind of roster construction dance we're going to have to play for these guys because, you know, week 1 of that 3 weeks, the guy could be saying that he wants to come back. And by week 3, depending on what happens, he could end up coming around saying, okay, I'm not coming back. So we got to make some plans. And I like how you said that for redraft leagues because I have one that's a 10-team league, which is kind of nice for that factor. But it's only 6 bench and no IR. And so that's going to be a really interesting one to play. So we might have to talk about those rules before the draft, but that's the live draft that we do at my house every year, which is always bumping. So we got to really make sure that we have a beat on that because it's going to affect leagues big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
All right, boys. I got a question here from Faith. That is FF Leap of Faith. And it's a good little icebreaker question.
What's up, Faith?
It's not too deep. What's going on, Faith? Thank you for your support. We appreciate the question. So since Canada doesn't have an NFL team, who are your teams and how did you become a fan? So why don't we start with you, Ben? Why don't you let us know where your fandom lies?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. So I'm up here in BC now, but I'm a dual citizen. I was actually born and raised in the Seattle area. So great question, Faith. Me and Faith are in another league together. It's a crazy WTFF league. So you can ask us about that one later. It's crazy. But I was born and raised in the Seattle area. So it's definitely all Seattle, everything for me sports-wise. Basketball being the exception since we lost our Sonics. You know, I definitely have been a LeBron fan for a long time. So I kind of follow him along the way. But for me, it's Seahawks easy. You know, when we were rocking out with John Kidna or the Rick Meyer days, it's, you know, the rough days. So it's nice to have some better team. But definitely that's an easy one for me. So hometown team.
Nice, man. And then old Hasselback and Sean Alexander came around and some glory days started to happen.
Definitely
Seahawks saturated here in BC. Big Seahawks fans. I'm not myself, so I'm not the biggest Seahawks fan because I have to hear it all the time. But it's fun to have that little rivalry within my city anyway. So it's a good place to be. So Jordan, where's your fandom lie? I don't actually know what your team is. I knew that Ben's was the Seahawks, but I can't recall what yours is.
I'm a Pats fan, man. I like winners.
Okay.
And I liked winners when I was young too. So I watched the Patriots a lot. You know, they won a lot of games. They played great defense. It was just something I kind of gravitated to when I was younger, and it just kind of stuck, you know. Obviously, it's been a great run. I still want them to suck. I'll tell everyone out there, if you're a Pats fan, you want them to win. I'm sorry, you're wrong. You want them to suck, and you want them to suck real bad, because there's a lot of good quarterbacks coming in this draft that you want a lot more than you want a playoff berth, or honestly, they're not winning the Super Bowl. If they win the Super Bowl, I'll happily eat that. But aside from that, you don't want anything but. So To me, it's simple. You tank, you take Lawrence, you have your franchise quarterback for another 20 years. It's no different than when Luck came out or Peyton Manning. You tank, you take that quarterback, you're set. That's it. That's all you got to do.
What if Billy just thinks he can nab another 6-rounder that can do that 20-year dance for him again? He's just sitting. He's like, I am the best coach in the history of football, and I'm going to find this quarterback in the 6th round. Maybe he just found out that Jarrett Stidham was not it, so he brought in Cam Newton. But just kind of a wild little thing about Billy's ego there, I guess. But no, I think if they would have kept Stidham in, like that's total tank show, ready to get that pick. So it's going to be an interesting year with Cam at the helm and Bill Belichick there. So, the Pats have been an interesting watch. And as you can see behind me, I'm an Eagles fan. So that's where my team is in Philly. And obviously they were beat by the Patriots in that one Super Bowl, but they got their revenge a couple years ago.
Yeah,
so
they did.
I'll take that.
Big Dick Nick.
Yeah, that's right. Just dropping his plums on the field there and throwing touchdowns. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. So yeah, my fandom is kind of weird because like I watched a lot of CFL as a kid, and like we watched some NFL here and there, but I was kind of a casual fan, and I was just kind of front running. So I liked Brett Favre in like the mid 90s when they went on that Super Bowl run. And then further to that, I was a big Ed McCaffrey fan. And so I was a bit of a Broncos fan when Elway went on that Super Bowl, back-to-back Super Bowls with Terrell Davis there. So that was where I sat at first. But then the early 2000s, I started getting really hard into Madden. And so I was playing a lot harder. And one of the exciting teams to play with was Donovan McNabb and those Philadelphia Eagles. And then I started watching football a lot harder. And I was like, damn, I'm just going to follow this team. So that's where that happened in the early 2000s. And here I am about 16 years later or so. And yeah, I love my Birds, man. They're a good team to watch. I like Carson Wentz. I like the Jalen Reagor pick. It's still good to be a Birds fan because it was tough for a few years there. Chip Kelly was pretty rough on us.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sold on Carson Wentz. Like it's just he got paid a lot of money, but I don't know, man. I really don't know. And it's the team too. Like I love Goddard. Goddard, I think, is probably a sleeper on that offense. I love Reagor. It'll probably take him a year. He might not blow up year one. That's fine. You can't expect everyone to blow up year one. I love Reagor. I think he's a great player. We'll see what he does with Wentz in year one. Year two, he should explode. But Wentz, yeah. I just don't know. Like he had that one great season. I know people get on his injury history, which is a little bit overblown, but even still, it's like you want to see him have a bit of a better record for kind of his allure, I guess is what I consider it to be.
Yeah, I see that.
He's a quarterback who should probably, based on his like quote unquote reputation, should be winning 10 games every year. And he's kind of like in the 8 to 9 range. He's kind of like what you hoped. I guess he's kind of hoping he gets to like that Dak level where Dak is now, but Dak has the weapons. He has a better offensive coordinator. It's just a lot of things going from. We'll see how Sanders does. We'll see how Reagor does. Djax, Alshon, if he ever comes back, who knows? But if you run through those tight ends, I think they'll be great. But will they be elite? In the NFC, probably not. NFC is too good. NFC South even is fucking loaded.
Yeah,
so
I feel
there's no way.
I don't think they're like. I'm not like blind to see that they're not like one of the top teams necessarily. Like I think they, if they can improve, they can definitely be that, but they're not quite there yet. And I think Carson Wentz is it though, man. I think he's going to be that. He just needs to string a few good seasons together and kind of mesh with those weapons as well. Cause I think some of the stuff that's happened has not necessarily been on him. And then of course the injuries and whatnot. So I think wheels up for the Birds, but that's an interesting one too, because Carson Wentz is very polarizing, right? Like people hate him and people just love him. And it's not just Birds fans either. Ben, what's your take on Carson Wentz? What do you think about like his ceiling as a dynasty quarterback?
Really solidify himself in that 7 to 8, probably just outside of those top 3, 4, 5 guys. So you're talking your Mahomes, your Lamar, Dak, probably Kyler as well, Deshaun Watson. But he's a guy that I think could slot in right after that. But we definitely do have to see him be healthy for a season and get through that. But the weapons are there, right? Long term, obviously, I love the Reagor pick. Absolutely love it. Sanders is coming into his own. We had a good chat about that on the last pod. And, I think Dallas Goedert, once he gets his chance for the long run, obviously Ertz is still doing his thing there, but I think you got a great backup as well, who's going to be a stud in his time too. So, I think he has all the tools, but it becomes real iffy if he gets hurt again this year or and next year, because I think Jalen Hurts is a stud, and I don't think you want to let that guy get on the field and show his ceiling, right? And show, he's a guy that got beat out at Alabama.
Can we take a minute?
Right?
Did you just say Jalen Hurts is a stud?
I like him, man.
A stud. A stud, like
a stud.
Like an actual stud, or like outside.
I hated like an actual stud. I hated the landing spot because I do like Wentz, and if Wentz is healthy, I think that he can hold him off. But that's a motivated guy, man, and he can definitely bring more with the running ability as well. But he definitely showed us some things at Oklahoma, which I would definitely be excited to see him with those weapons. It could be real interesting. He doesn't have to go out there and win the game himself when he has those weapons. So I absolutely think if he got a chance, for when start to, especially with the Philly fans, like Philly will turn on you quick if you're not healthy or you're not having good games. So it's would create something real interesting. But for now, I think Wentz is safe. But I wouldn't want to have a guy like Hurts sitting behind me there, just chomping at the bit and learning and get better.
I mean, I like him. Don't get me wrong. I like Hurts, but I don't know if for Hurts, the problem is he appears ceiling capped. Not that he's not a good quarterback, not that he's not like the running ability. We'll see how much he runs in the NFL. He probably can. I think he wouldn't unless he had to, type of thing. Kind of like you see, I'd hope he'd kind of learn from Kyler Murray in that way. Obviously, they kind of have a similar style. Kyler has more arm talent. But you think about like playing to not get hit rather than playing to actually get extra yardage. Murray's definitely good in that respect. One of the things I love about Murray, when you talk about his rushing ability, he's so fast. Like he's as fast as Andy Isabella is, basically. And he doesn't get hit hardly ever. You rarely see him take a big hit. He usually runs out of bounds, usually slides. He's good at that. Obviously, baseball background that people love to talk about, which I think is overrated. But it does help. Like it's not a knock on you for sure. But I think at least for Hurts, you want to see him. Can he make all the throws? And can he make all the throws in the NFL? The out routes, the corner routes. That's the stuff I want to see him make. And I don't know if he can do that consistently. But other than that, the IQ is there more than anything. He seems like he has the IQ ingrained in him from Nick Saban to Lincoln Riley. That's as good this pedigree as you're going to find it for any NFL talent or any college player coming to the NFL. But beyond that, I think Wentz should hold him off easy just because Wentz has way more talent. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's way better pocket presence, he's way better at avoiding tackles. Like there's a lot of things Wentz does better than Hurts does. But Hurts is a great backup because he can do everything Wentz can do just at a lesser degree, right? So he's a great backup to have for sure.
Yeah, I think he's a couple years away from being the passer that an NFL team is going to want starting, just like you said there, Jordan. I think he's got to show a little bit more in that facet of the game. But I think if he can put that together, like even if he gets moved to a different team or something does happen to Wentz, I think he can come in and be capable of keeping the offense afloat. They would obviously have to morph it a little bit because they're not going to be bombing it quite as much as they do with Carson Wentz. But I think it would be interesting, and it was tough to see that as a second round pick, but the more I think about it, the more I think, okay, if you can develop this guy, I think there's any which ways that you can go with him if you wanted to keep him around or if you wanted to trade him or whatnot. So I didn't mind it after I kind of deeply thought about it because it hurt at first, I will admit. So yeah, fellas, it's
and like one thing to add on to that, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he's he's boys with AJ Brown. So if you talk about like in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, like it's just because I follow AJ Brown on Instagram.
I can see that.
They are like really, really tight, like really, really tight. So if you were to see a situation where maybe they keep Rager, maybe somehow Hurts becomes a starter, maybe AJ Brown's like, let's go to Philly. You never know. I know they're really, really close. I know they're really good friends.
Nice.
So like I've seen them working out together, all that stuff, but you never know. It could happen. It probably won't happen, but
I
wanted to point that out.
As Derrick
people
Henry.
like AJ. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm tweeting that right now.
Maybe you never know.
That Tannehill contract was only 4 years, and I'm sure it's you might be able to get out of that. So I like that, dude. Yeah, that'd be interesting. We'll take a first round pick plus, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, killer.
So you never know. Hurts is dope.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm with you too, Jordan, in that I think we're probably a year out from seeing what that wide receiver core is really going to be like. I think the rookies are probably going to have to take some lumps as far as snap share this season. But it's a group that can be worked with because it can't be any worse than last year. So, speaking of wide receiver cores, Ben, let's flip back to your Seahawks real quick. We got some people in the chat and a couple questions have rolled in, but since we're talking wide receiver groups, why don't we talk about DK and Lockett? You have expressed your love for DK. I've seen a couple of tweets here and there. Maybe once or twice you've tweeted about him. I don't know.
Maybe.
So what are you thinking? Like, I personally am still on team Tyler Lockett as the wide receiver 1 in Seattle. But I'm curious to see where you guys sit. Do you think DK takes that over?
Yes.
Not
like,
hard.
Do you think it's going to be pretty close, or do you think DK is just going to full takeover?
So I've been pretty vocal about this, on recent podcasts, on Twitter. I believe DK is, with the full season. That's the cat. But with the season, I believe in DK for a guy that's gonna just blow us out of the water this year, really figure things out. After having a year to adjust and coming on strong in the playoffs, 1,200 yards and 10 plus touchdowns. And I just think Russ hasn't had that type of receiver yet with type of ability. That DK needs to work on, and they've been working on that. So, he's a guy that's just been putting in a massive amount of work in the offseason and spending a ton of time with Russ. And Tyler Lockett's still going to be there. He's a guy that could easily still do with that 1,200 yards on the table. I could still see him putting up 900 to 1,000 yards. He's going to be that. I see him more as that Jarvis Landry, just as far as a dependable type player, somebody that would be great to have as that like wide receiver 3, because Russ is still going to look his way. Tyler knows how to get open for Russ when he's scrambling. They have a great rapport that way. So he really is taking on that kind of Doug Baldwin role. But even when we had Doug Baldwin just absolutely, overachieving year after year from where he was at ADP wise, you didn't have that absolute stud receiver. Like Doug was taking advantage of all the great opportunities and the great rapport with Russ, but Russ is a guy that's going to look for the star, and he's gonna really try to raise the potential or raise the ceiling of somebody. And DK is an absolute freak, and everybody was pretty down on some of the things he couldn't do last year, and we saw how that turned out. So I believe he had 58 catches last year. So if you push him up to even 9 catches, with just how many of the long bombs he gets, it's going to be dangerous. Such a the 10 touchdown part seems almost easy. The 1,200 yards, I just think we've been saying year after year when it's and that's because we're based, it's a complete run team, right? It's run first. And I do think we'll still be run first, but I think you'll see Russ get more opportunities this year with some of the injuries that we've seen, really hit that team hard. So you obviously have Carson coming off a major injury. Penny probably won't see him for at least half the year. We picked up Carlos Hyde and DJ Dallas, but it just feels like Russ is going to get an opportunity because we saw how that was. We made the playoffs, but we were pretty mediocre, in a lot of aspects. And I just feel like Russ is going to get a chance, and they're getting to that point where it's like, why not? Do we want to waste too many more years of what Russ can do and how long Pete's going to be there? So I do, call it wishful thinking or whatever. I just think that Russ is going to get some more opportunities, but he doesn't need that many more. It doesn't have to go to a pass first offense. He's extremely efficient. And I don't know if there's a better deep ball thrower in the league, so if you're working with Russ, DK size and speed, he doesn't have to be a 120 catch guy to make this happen. Right. So
for sure.
Any in targets and just increase in efficiency. We saw DK have, too many drops last year, right? And it got better as the season went on. But 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns doesn't seem crazy. And then we're going to be talking about this guy as an early second, late first round Dynasty startup guy, and that's going to be massive. But we definitely need some more of these wide receivers that take that next step. AJ Brown's another one, but Yeah, let Russ cook. I see you. It's coming, and I feel like this is the year that we're really going to see him shine, and DK is going to get a chance, and he's a guy that's just not going to give up that opportunity.
Jordan, where are you sitting on that fence?
It's funny Ben, what more do I have to say? You nailed it, man. The only thing you didn't really mention about DK that people don't know is that both Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were in the top 20 in red zone targets. For a team that doesn't pass that much, that matters. Like, that's a big deal, totally. And actually people don't know that Tyler Lockett led the NFL. He had more red zone reception or red zone targets than Michael Thomas. I believe he had 24. DK had 17. So to me, you flip that, you give DK, 23, 24 red zone targets, give Lockett, maybe 16, 17. And then as well, DK only converted, I think, 20% of those targets. The reason for that is because he's not very quick in and out of his breaks. He doesn't excel in short areas. That's why he's not very good in the red zone. But when you think about when he has more space to run, more space to get open, he's always running wide open. He's always making big chunk plays. But in this offseason, if he works on that short area quickness, that red zone ability, he has jump ball ability already. We know that. He can do everything that he needs to do. It's just like, can he run a fade route every time? I broke down his routes. I saw him run a perfect comeback. I was like, what the fuck? I thought this guy couldn't even run a comeback. I saw him run a perfect comeback, caught the ball on the sideline. I was like, dude, if you did that consistently, you're unstoppable. But he's just, for him, it's consistency and it's that short area quickness, getting in and out of breaks. But beyond that, he's a great player. And you're going to see a time where he gets a jump ball and he brings it down, over another guy because he's better than him. But if he can actually use his quickness in the red zone, because he's fast, but he has to be quick. It's not always about speed. It's about quickness in and out of those breaks. When he improves that, whether it's this year or next year, dude's going to be a monster. He's going to be a monster. He'll be 10 touchdowns every season because – whether he can hit 1,200, I hope so. I remember I told you that. I think I projected 1,150, just like off the top of my head, and 10 or 11 touchdowns when we were talking about a long time ago. But for him, it's red zone efficiency and red zone targets. I think they're both going up. On top of his actual targets going up, it's 100 last year. He should be over 130 this year. Easy. I can see him getting more opportunities this year. And so you think about just that small uptick, and then I think he was around 54% catch percentage. That's low for Russ. That's really low. Russ can throw that guy to a 60. Totally. He's basically Drew Brees. So why he couldn't do that? I mean, we'll see. We'll see how DK does. He has a little off season. He may even have an extended off season to train, get better. That should mean a lot for him. And there's so much upside. Like, the upside is crazy. And so for me, it's just like, can he get into the breaks? And that's all it takes for him. And then he goes from like wide receiver 2 to like top 5 because his ceiling is through the roof. If he becomes dependable in the red zone, he should get 140, 150 targets every year. Lockett could still get 100, but DK is going to command the ball. My only fear really is if Russ really likes Greg Olsen, because Russ likes his tight ends in the red zone. But other than that, I don't see a situation where he's not getting a lot of red zone targets. But if Greg Olsen gets used in the red zone, then we're going to see maybe the 7-8 range, which is still fine. But you want to see a player like DK get over the 10. It just depends on if Greg Olsen's healthy and if Russ likes him. Otherwise, I think DK could easily see 130 targets, probably catch around 75 balls. And then I think if you think about like 15 a reception, whatever that number is, I think it's 1150. So it should be easy for him to get somewhere around there, over 1,100 for sure, double-digit touchdowns. It's just about efficiency. It's not about talent. It's about ability a bit, but it's just about being more efficient than the year before. So we'll see what happens.
For sure. I think that's kind of what gives me pause, is just the consistency of those downfield targets. And like you said, if we see him starting to run like a more broad route tree and he's running if he's running those comebacks, those are going to be kind of deadly with Russ running out of the pocket for sure. But I think Tyler Lockett is going to be that Doug Baldwin where he's getting those consistent like 10 targets. And I think that the chemistry between Russ and Lockett is kind of what keeps me on team Lockett. And I think probably if we're looking at Dynasty and redraft, I'm looking at Lockett for redraft and maybe obviously DK for Dynasty. But I think just with that price point with DK at the 4 spot, spot. I'm not quite ready, in the 4th round. I'm not quite ready to put him in as my wide receiver 2. I'd like some other options that are available there. But yeah, he can definitely have that ceiling, but I'm still going to lean a little bit towards Lockett because I think he fits Russell Wilson's scrambling a little bit better in that he can get open quickly with that quickness as opposed to DK when he's got a head of steam, and it's kind of hard for him to stop that 200 and whatever it is pound frame on a dime, obviously. But that's kind of why I go Lockett. And maybe there's a little bit of residual love from him being a key roster piece in the past because I love me some Tyler Lockett, but a great offense to have pieces of in fantasy. One question we just got here from Josh Nelson. He's on the True North team, actually, TNFF_Smokey. What if they get AB2? So this is a little bit of a hot button one. I've got a lot of people like that I've seen who say that's the only destination for him. I'm not quite sure about that. But what do you guys think about that fit? I think that would kind of sink all boats in that passing game. If AB were to get there, I think they would all kind of level out. I don't know who would get the lion's share. Ben, why don't we start with your team? What do you think if AB were to go to the Seahawks?
Yeah, so if AB comes, it's definitely, I mean, I'm probably out there trying to buy the last couple of leagues I don't have DK, and I'm going to go out there and buy because we know that there's going to be a suspension coming, right? So I think that if it's a huge if he signs, and then if he makes it through a suspension, that's not a full season or whatever it might be, then, surely everybody would drop in targets and just overall productivity because AB is a stud when he's on the field. I just think there's been way too many red flags, and I'm not biting on that one at this point in the game. I also think everybody's, kind of brushing off Josh Gordon, and, he definitely has the same kind of inconsistencies over a longer period as far as staying on the field for different reasons. But it seems he has a head on his shoulders, and he really has a good bond with that Seattle team, and the front office still really likes him. So I think that's the more likely scenario that you see Josh Gordon come back there if he gets reinstated. So, and I think he's a good fit, and he's not requiring a ton of, 10 targets to 12 targets a game anymore. So if AB was there, absolutely. If AB signs with any team and he eventually makes it on the field for the, say, second half of the year, yeah, you're going to drop and these numbers we're talking about are going to change pretty dramatically. So yeah, that's a big one. But little nugget, DK has been working on those red zone things and all the inefficiencies that he had last year with Richard Sherman and Josh Gordon this offseason quite a bit. So to work against Sherman, that's a huge piece. So that's a little inside nugget there for you guys. But the dude is hungry and looking to anybody that is a star at what they do for advice. And when you pair that kind of talent with that type of drive to get better, and that example with Russ right alongside him as a guy that just wants to be great and wants to be a legend, then it could be scary. So all those things that, you're saying 4th round, and I'm saying that's a screaming buy, man. Right. So, because once he blows up, he could be a late first, early second type guy. But yeah, if AB signs, anybody's going to drop in productivity for sure if he's on the field.
Yeah, I hate it. I hope he doesn't. I just want him to go somewhere else. I don't think it happens either necessarily. Jordan, what about you? Do you think there's a chance?
I think there's a small chance. I don't think that him working out with Russ is nothing. Is it something? I don't know. And I think, honestly, to counter Ben's point a little bit about, as far as DK goes, I think DK's targets are pretty safe. He may not hit 130 with AB there, but I think it'd probably hurt Lockett a lot more than it would hurt DK, right? Because DK could still see outside targets. Like, AB can play outside. We all know that. But, there's still the rapport. And Trav, just to kind of talk about what you said earlier about DK and his inefficiencies, where I think you're a little bit not wrong. And I understand the not wanting to buy, especially in redraft. Redraft is a lot different. I would go a safer route, especially as far as targets are concerned. But as far as his actual ability, you don't see a lot of rookies come in and get 100 targets, no matter who you are. So you think about a rookie coming and getting 100 targets, that means something to me, right? So I totally get he's maybe too expensive now. That I totally feel. And I'm not even buying that much in Dynasty. I think that there could be a small dip in value. And he's also not going up in value right now. He's still going down. When I made a video about him, probably Ben, a month ago at least, probably 6 weeks ago now, He was, I think, wide receiver 16, and now he's about wide receiver 18 in DLF ADP. So he's still going down. He's still slotting behind the Ridleys and all these guys. I think he could pass them all, but I wouldn't be buying just yet because I think he's still kind of going down a little bit. So you could try and buy him, but I think because of the ceiling, like Ben talked about, like I talked about, like even you talked about, people who really believe, they fucking believe he's a top 12 wide receiver. And it's really hard to buy him because there's a believer in every league. So it's very hard to buy that guy. But I think if you can get him in the 5th in Dynasty, you're probably going to see a nice return.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right
5th would be really, really nice for DK.
Yeah. 4th is like, I'd probably take Ridley because I like him more, but that's just because he's a route runner and DK is not. But
or like an AJ Brown. I've seen those guys go.
Yeah, but AJ's higher though.
AJ's probably getting up into the back of the 3rd now. Yeah.
Oh man, he's up there. He's ahead of Julio Jones. Ahead of Juju. Like probably rightfully so because people don't talk about how AJ's 1,000 every year. Man, he just puts up 1,000 yards.
Totally.
And so it's just like people don't talk about that. They can like DK better. They can like other guys, but AJ Brown every year in college 1,000 yards. He's gonna do it every single year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Okay, I got another question coming in here, boys. It's from Shevin from the Dynasty Rewind podcast. Let's go, Chev. So with Kelvin Harmon going down, who do you feel could slide into the wide receiver 3 spot in the Washington to be determined wide receiver core? So we got, I guess, obviously the one is Terry McLaurin. We love
Who's the
him.
2?
Steven Sims, I'm guessing here. So Chev's got big plus on Steven Sims, or does AGG slide right in?
I'll take AGG all day. I love Gandy Golden. I think he's super underrated. He's just a jump ball specialist.
Yeah,
and that's where I think, like, when you think about a guy who, like, Dwayne Haskins needs more than anybody. He needs somebody who can go up and get the ball. Not that Terry can't do that, but Terry's a route running specialist. He can go deep. He can go all over the field. But if you need someone that has a massive catch radius who can go up and snag a ball, that's the guy who Kelvin Harmon is, and that's the guy who Dwayne Haskins will need. So with Harmon down, I think it's AGG. And I honestly think AGG is going to be really, really good. I really liked him a lot in college. I was surprised he slipped so far, but, maybe he wasn't as smart as people hoped or didn't have kind of the IQ that people were looking for from a guy, even though he's small school, maybe he still checks all those boxes. But I think on the field, he was productive. He's a good player. He may not be quite fast enough, but I definitely am a big fan of Gandy Golden. I think, he should have a perfect opportunity to step into that wide receiver 2 role. I'm not a big fan of Sims. Sims is fine. On him. And especially because Trey Quinn's still there. Like, he was a sleeper last year, so maybe he sees targets there. I don't really know, but I'm definitely a big fan of AGG. And if he can get on the field, we're going to find that out. But if he can get on the field, I think he could be really good. A safety net, a big target. He runs pretty good routes. If you haven't really watched him play, he does run pretty good routes for someone his size. And he's like 6'3", 230. So you think about someone basically as big as DK Metcalf is, but probably runs better routes than DK. He's just a bit slower. So he doesn't have that acceleration, but he's a bit more technical in that respect. And he can definitely complement Terry, to your point, Josh, very well.
I like it. Yeah, he's already mossing fools in practice. You saw that video that was on Twitter of him with the one-handed catch. That was
one-hander.
That was
madness.
Filthy. That was filthy.
Madness.
Yeah,
that dude's crazy.
I think they probably are a candidate to add somebody in the veteran pool or whatever. I don't know who's on the market. Like, obviously AB's on the market, and I can't recall the other guys. I don't think there's anybody hugely of note, but if somebody gets released or something, I could see them definitely adding a veteran presence there. Ben, where are you sitting? Who do you think is going to be the wide receiver 3 for the Washingtons?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be gross early on in the season. You got guys like Cam Sims, and I think Cody Latimer is there now. So Cody Latimer is a guy that could get a few targets early on, and that's kind of gross. And but I think AGG is the guy that you're gonna want for long term, and as that season goes on. He is going to have to figure out how to separate. His catch radius is crazy. But the separation piece is big in the NFL, and some guys just don't make that transition, right? So that can be scary, especially coming from a smaller school where he didn't already see that tougher, level of competition and defense. So that would be my one concern, and my guess on why he did drop a little bit as well in the draft. So, but what a golden opportunity. Cause like I said, it's Cam Sims and, he's going against Cody Latimer and we don't know who the heck the tight end's going to be. There's some even Logan Thomas hype now going on out there
Bad
at tight
Moss,
end.
baby.
Jeremy Sprinkle,
Thaddeus
baby.
Moss is there.
Yeah.
Right. Sims, I do like a lot. And I've heard from some inside sources there at the Redskins. I do have some inside sources there that he's gonna have a chance at a really nice role there. He did great with limited opportunity last year. He's a playmaker. You get him the ball in space, he's an exciting player. My one concern is where does Gibson fit in on this? But because Gibson's going to kind of move all over the field.
I knew you were going to like that, Jordan.
You want to talk about playmakers? You better talk about Antonio Gibson, who should be the wide
I know.
That
dude is
he's going to move all over.
Man, he's just a bigger Tony Pollard, bigger, faster Tony Pollard. People need to seriously realize that, because
I think there's room for. Yeah, there's room for both those guys on the field though, because of their tight end situation. I feel like, right, keep the tight end in there just to block. They're so bad. But
they're so bad.
I like that.
And like Trav, I don't think they're going to add anybody. To your point about adding someone, like what's the point? Like what's it going to do for them? They're still going to lose 13 games.
I guess that is like a progress stopper for the young guys for sure. So I guess maybe even if they don't, I think like you said, Gandy Golden has Ben. You said a golden opportunity, by the way, and I missed the chance to drop that as a Gandy Golden opportunity. But I think with him being a bigger guy and them not having a tight end presence, I think that's the opportunity, right? Is the red zone targets, obviously, and then just being that big guy, like Jordan said, with the big catch radius to complement Terry McLaurin in those routes. I really like that, how you said that, because Terry McLaurin's set to just blow up, and a complementary piece would go a long way in that offense, because you got Geis coming back from all those injuries, and he's looking like he's healthy. He's got them workout videos going on, so he's looking pretty good. So hopefully we can get some health from him, because he's an exciting dude to watch. And Haskins' progression is going to be the key for this team, and I think those weapons go a long way. So we had that was Andrew Dodson, so that's from the Dynasty Playbook. Ben, he says, which one of us is
that's my co-host?
So I think since he's your co-host, I think you should be the one who probably sends him that poutine, right? But I guess
Jordan, I'm half French Canadian, right? So
Jordan, you probably live closer to where all the good cheese curds and stuff are at. So it's probably like the best out in like Quebec area. So we'll see what we can do for you, Drew. But I'm not necessarily sure that poutine shipped from Canada to the US is going to be very good for you by the time it gets there. So you may have to bring the ingredients in yourself and make one, but we can definitely help you with that. So appreciate the poutine call out. There's always one. There's always a poutine call out. People love that.
Gotta do it. I actually lived in Ottawa for 5 years, so I had fucking good poutine.
Nice.
Yeah,
like
way better
we've got
up there.
We've got some spots, but like I've never been that far out east to try it. So if I ever do, it's happening.
Yeah, it's good.
You got that spot in Esquimalt there. They're from Quebec.
La Belle Patate. Yeah, that's the spot that I go to, and that's
the
deadly
spot,
poutine. Yeah. That's deadly poutine for sure.
With the sage soda there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really cool spot. Okay, we got Jimmy Lou. Is there a chance Minshew remains the starter next year? So Gardner Minshew is coming in to his first and a half season as the starter, I guess. He had like about a little over a half last year, I guess. And he looked pretty decent, obviously on a bad team. But where do you boys sit on old Gardner the Hardener?
No. Like, not at all. I don't think there's any way. The problem is, to me, is they're not really trying to win. They're getting rid of all their defensive pieces. Yeah, they still have DJ Shark. That's awesome. Like, Gardner, he's a great story. He maybe sells a few more tickets than the average shitty quarterback. But, I mean, when you think about Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, 3 studs. That's it. And if they all come out, there's no way Jacksonville's not taking one of those guys, because Gardner's just not good enough. He doesn't have the skill set all 3 of those guys have. All 3 of those guys can run. They can throw the ball all over the field and are uber talented, have the highest ceilings of some quarterbacks we've seen ever. You're talking about guys who can run and pass for fantasy, especially. Whew, man, those guys are going to be crazy. So I don't see it any way they don't take them, unless Gardner's like the best. But how? Because they don't have any weapons. So outside of Shark and Fournette, I guess, because he's going to run the ball like crazy this year, they're going to be just strapped, barely scoring any points. Defense is going to be awful. They're just going to be trash. And
Yeah,
I
think,
don't hate
ahead.
Gardner, but he's not going to have the opportunity, and he's going to suck, and he'll probably flame out. He may go somewhere else. You never know, but he probably won't be the starter in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think he could probably have like a Blake Bortles from their playoff season year just because of garbage time. Like I could see him being that kind of guy, just with the slinging mentality. And he does have a little bit of rushing upside that he showed last year. So I'm not too sure. It depends where they're drafting as well. Like if they luck into like 6 wins or something like that and they can't get one of those guys, they're obviously going to have to try and move up. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch because I'm with you. Gardner's not the guy who's going to put the team on his back. He's going to have the team built around him. So he's a fun watch though. I like him and I like some of the pieces in the offense as well. Like I like Chris Conley. I've got a soft spot for Chris Conley for some reason. He's ceiling is like 700 yards, but I'm down for that at the price. But where do you sit, Ben, on the Jaguars and Gardner? Because Gardner mania was massive last year, and he was a big hit for the NFL and a big money draw for Duval.
Yeah, so those are all pieces of the puzzle, right? I think Gardner is a guy. So I see in the chat, Josh says he's got nothing to lose, right? And that's it. He has nothing to lose. He is a guy that whether he can or can't put that team on his back, he's going to try, and he's going to do anything to win some games for that team. So it reminds me of a potential Tony Romo type situation. I think the potential is there for that, where he just balls out. He's a later round guy that comes in and just starts to figure it out, right? I think if somebody like LaVisca can stay on the field with them, then you're pairing Chark with LaVisca, and that's a couple weapons for him, right? Josh Oliver maybe starts to break out a little bit. He's just never on the field. And then Fournette, is he going to be bought into the team, or is he going to be like kick rocks guys? We don't know. So there's definitely, their defense is going to be trash, but there's definitely going to be some opportunity for him to shine. Definitely common sense says that they probably are going to try to get one of those first round quarterbacks. And you mentioned those top 3, but there's also, I think Jamie Newman's a guy that can make a huge jump and be in that first round conversation too, if he has a big year at Georgia, especially holding off the new transfer in Daniels. So Gardner's a guy that I don't want to write off. And I think that if you're in a super flex league, especially if you're competing this year, like he's a great buy because he's still crazy cheap because everybody is scared of his future. And you might have a guy that goes on a Case Keenum run, right? At the worst, and a Tony Romo type run at the best. So he's got nothing to lose. He's absolutely going to leave it all on the field, whether the team is trying to make them lose or not. He's a fighter, man. And that's just what he is. He has that charisma that can lift a team, and I don't think you can really discount that. That's a piece that we don't put in the stat line, but when you have a guy that leads like that and has the charisma, it can be really, really good for a team, or it can go negative a la Baker really quick as well. But it's definitely something. He's not a Baker talent, but
big shot.
I think he came up a little different way, but he's a guy that, I think he's worth a potential buy because he's crazy cheap in leagues right now, like crazy cheap. You're probably drafting him around like a Derek Carr in Dynasty Superflex. So
cheaper, man.
If that's
I think he's
cheaper,
like bottom 5 quarterback. And I forget where I saw the stat, but I think it was Gruden's quarterbacks in like the last 5 years have averaged 4 rushing touchdowns, which is crazy. That's a lot of rushing touchdowns for fantasy. So think about even just that, to have that rushing touchdown floor. He may not get that, but even if he gets 3 rushes for 400 or 500, passes for like only 3,200 yards, like 20 or so touchdowns, it's probably not so bad. It's probably, like quarterback 18, quarterback 17. But most importantly, he's going to outperform that ADP. So if he's even your QB3, he's a solid. Maybe you look at his matchups. Could be a great quarterback for you to have in Superflex league. Even in a single QB, if you want to buy him on like the dirt cheap, pay a 4th round pick or something, try and just pull him off someone's roster. You never know.
Yeah,
you never know. It could work out.
He's a guy that is he's a gunslinger, man. He comes from that air raid offense at Wazoo, right? That they had before Leach moved on. So he has no fear. Yeah, he has no fear at all, right? So he's just going to throw the ball, and that's either going to go really, really good or really bad. So it comes down to decision making. So if he's making the right decisions and he has those playmakers healthy and around him, who knows, right? He's cheap he's cheap. So I definitely around the guys he's
Totally.
going, I'd probably take him around over all those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And he's still super young too, right? So usually, like you said, if you're getting him as your quarterback 3, why not take that shot, especially in Superflex? Because I personally like to have like 5 quarterbacks on my roster just to be careful with that depth. You know, if I'm taking a couple backups, like Ryan Tannehill from last year, he was a big target, and like if those guys can pan out, those guys can win you championships in a certain season, right? So I love Gardner, and I just think he's a lot of fun with that big stash and definite gunslinger mentality, and hopefully the leash isn't too short, because I think kind of like you said, he would have to be really lighting it up for them to be able to live with the mistakes that he's going to be making. So and I'm not sure the offense is conducive to him lighting it up that hard. So I got another question here from Toronto F88. That's our buddy Dave. Moss or Singletary, or neither? So Jordan, why don't you kick it off with this one?
If I had to pick one, I would take Singletary. I think he's going to get more carries. He may not get more red zone work, but I think he's going to see more carries, more touches, and that ultimately may just put him ahead of Moss. Do I think Moss could be decent? Sure, but unless he actually takes over Singletary's job, he's probably not going to be a fantasy viable option for you in redraft or in Dynasty. It may be a year, maybe 2 years. He may never. I mean, I honestly don't like Zach Moss. I think he's trash. I think he's trash. But he could be fine. You know, like they're in a run first offense. They're probably going to run the ball 450 times. I mean, Josh Allen may take 100 of those, may take 70, may take 80, but 350 amongst 2 guys and maybe 50 to another guy, that's about, 175 to one, 125 to another. Not bad, right? Not bad to split those carries that way. And then if Singletary does get some receiving volume similar to Moss, I'm still taking Singletary, even if Moss gets that Frank Gore role they're talking about where he gets a little bit more goal line work. But yeah, it's just, I just don't believe in Moss's long speed. I think the Pac-12 was just super slow. And like you look at guys like Salvon Ahmed, Zach Moss, like these guys are running 4.6s at the 40. And they look like they're blazing on tape. Like they look running 4.4s, 4.3s. And so I just don't know. And he could be fine. Like I'm just not a big believer in his talent personally. I think it's a little bit overrated. But part of that is just where he played. He didn't play in the best conference, and he might have got a little bit boosted, but his stats are fucking great. Like his stats are off the charts. But it's just like, where is he playing? Who's he playing? He also played on a great defense. So that defense was excellent this year and last year. So how does that affect him? Well, he has a bit more opportunity, a few more touches, shorter fields, all these different things that help make a team great, make a player great in certain circumstances. He may not necessarily have that in Buffalo, but we'll see. Buffalo also has a great defense, also has a great O-line, but he's going to be probably playing the second fiddle to Singletary's 1A, unless he takes over, at which point I still like Singletary a lot. Like, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Singletary's tape, but he is legit a fucking beast at Florida Atlantic. Like I think it was 1 year he scored over 30 touchdowns, which is insane. I don't care. I don't care where you play. If you score 30 touchdowns, that's Danny Woodhead range. Like that's that's absurd. So it's just like, are you going to really stop that dude? Yeah, he's a little small. Yeah, he's a little undersized, but he is impossible to bring down. Like he's so hard to bring down. They called the motor for a reason.
For sure.
A motor Singletary keeps it moving in the open field. So you don't want to try and tackle him. And Zach Moss is good too, but I think ultimately, especially this year, he's probably 1B. Long term, maybe, but I still like Singletary better as a talent myself.
Ben, how about you?
Yeah, I'm out on Singletary. He's going too high right now. Yeah, he's going too high right now for me. Just he's going to be in a committee, right? And he's going to be in a committee without the red zone touches. Moss is surely going to get those short yardage carries. He's built like that. In 2019, he had over 4 yards after contact was his average. That's crazy in a major conference. So, it's the Pac-12, but still,
I'm going to say what major conference was that?
Yeah,
it's more like a minor conference.
That's so you mentioned the speed piece, but he's a bruiser. That's what he is, right? So he has great feet. He keeps his feet moving. He's not a breakaway guy. That's just not how he plays. So we definitely know they can block. The concern for me with Moss would be Josh Allen in the short yardage, but I think the Bills are, just like a lot of teams, like they're in on Josh Allen for the long term. So you're going to want to have him run a lot less if you can. And that's where I think why they spent a 3rd round pick on Moss. So, give me Moss, even if he's at 35-40% of the carries in year 1, with some of those short yardage and red zone opportunities. I'd be very, very happy with that versus Singletary, with who we know is going to have some highlight plays for sure, but he's really going to struggle in the red zone or short yardage areas, and just because of opportunity alone. So yeah, I'll take Moss here, but I'm also going to be very cognizant of the value there, because some leagues I've seen Moss go way too high. I've seen him in some rookie drafts go in the very, very early 2nd, and I'm out at that cost. But if you're talking late 2nd in a rookie draft, definitely I think Moss is a great buy.
Yeah, I was taking him about mid-2nd, so we're not far off there. And I think I like Zach Moss, but I hated the landing spot. And I think for me, the answer is neither, just because I think they eat into each other way too much. I think with Josh Allen, like, this is a lot of the stuff that you guys were saying, but with Josh Allen and the red zone carries plus the additional just regular carries that he's going to have, I think these guys are both probably capped at like 150 carries tops. And I actually think Zach Moss may get a little bit of an edge in carry volume, but I think if there's any pass catching, there's not a ton of pass catching for the running backs in Buffalo, I think that's still going to go to Devin Singletary. So I think if I had to choose right now, it's going to be Singletary, just because that little bit of a boost in the PPR leagues that I play with. But it's pretty close, because I do think that the carries are going to be a little bit closer than that, and I think they could be right in line, if not Zach Moss getting a little bit more of the 1st and 2nd down work, with Singletary's snap share being lower, but his efficiency staying high like it was last year, and getting those big plays, because he can bounce off real good. Check this out, boys. My wife says, "Don't worry, babe. I made my own popcorn."
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Love you, babe. We were hopping on at 8:30, boys, and it was about 8:26, and she asked if I could make popcorn, and I said I couldn't make her popcorn. I could get her a beverage. I did get you a drink, but not. Thanks, babe. That's great.
See you, Sabrina.
That's great.
That's
Thanks. Awesome. Yeah, not embarrassing at all, babe. Love ya.
That's awesome. Just to talk about like what we were talking about with those guys. So I dove into my projections for the Bills. And so over the last 3 years, the RB1 has gotten 55% of the carries for running backs, with the second running back getting 36%. So using that to project a little bit, I projected about 470 carries for the team, 107 going to Josh Allen with 8 touchdowns. So that's, I don't even know why I have 8 touchdowns, but he'll probably get pretty close to that.
It's like 360 left.
Well, yeah, about 360 left. So I projected 191 for Singletary and 125 for Moss, with each of them getting 3 touchdowns. Right. So, you see Moss get more goal line work, but touchdowns remain the same. And then I have them basically the same percent. So I have Moss at a 7% target share, and then Singletary at 8. So basically 42 and 35 targets apiece, with Singletary getting 1 more touchdown through the air. Nice. Basically, that leaves them at 171 fantasy points for Singletary and PPR, and 128 for Moss. So you think about, like, is Singletary going to be RB2? Maybe. But Moss is probably going to be unstartable, because you're never going to know when that good game is going to come unless he takes over. But I just honestly see them being pretty split. I just still think Singletary is going to get the more carries. But to your point, it may just be inconsistent, maybe game to game.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
You think about in division, man, they should both see 15 carries a game in division, because all those games are going to be ground and pound defense. Like, all those teams suck. So unless Cam is the best quarterback ever, but even Brady struggled to win in Buffalo. So we'll see what happens there. But I was surprised. I figured I'd pull it because I thought I did them as I started with the AFC East. But we'll see. They could split. They'll probably be over. One will be over 150 for sure. But whether they get over 175 is a bit. We'll see on health and all those different things. But he's probably going to be under 200, because Josh Allen's going to go for probably over 100 carries unless something happens. But I honestly, Ben, I don't think he's going to slow down, man. I just don't. I think Josh Allen's a guy who does whatever he can to win. He's kind of like Carson Wentz in that way. You can't really slow him down. And he's like, what, 6'5", 240?
Yeah.
They compared him to Cam Newton for a reason, even though he's not there yet. but he's definitely got that size to him where he can run. He's not the smartest runner, but he's got the size, and hopefully he gets a bit smarter. But I just think he's still going to run the ball a lot, no matter how you try and stop him. It's kind of just part of his game. It's part of what helps him win.
For sure. And it's like a lot of off script stuff with him. Like, sure, there is some design stuff because they do like to run the ball pretty heavily, but I think a lot of stuff is just off script. Like, that's like like instead of checking down the ball down to a running back, he's just going to take off and get those 5 yards because he's a monster. The guy could literally stand still and belly flop on the field and he's gaining 5 yards as long as he puts the ball out. So I think he's just that's kind of baked in with him, and right around 100 carries is where I'd probably put him at as well, Jordan. All right, boys, we got another one, and it's another tandem backfield with a rookie coming in. Obviously, this one's been talked about a lot, but we're going to talk about it real quick here. Keyshawn Vaughn or Ronald Jones? Ben, where are you sitting?
Rojo all day. So Ronald Jones is a guy that definitely showed us a few things last year, but it's more about how down I am on Vaughn coming in. So there has been some reports that Vaughn had said he was, all in on the playbook and had studied it really well. And then he got picked, and then he got called out for actually not even opening the playbook. And so with that, it kind of put him in the doghouse to start. So without having a training camp and kind of a time to make up for what happened there, I'm going to bet that Bruce Arians, being the old school guy he is going to definitely make Vaughn pay for that a little bit. So I think Rojo is going to get every opportunity, and I think Tom Brady and the rest of the weapons around are going to make Rojo look good. He's a guy that can catch the ball. I know there's some love out there for Ogunbowale, and I think at the price of free, cool, that's awesome. Like, take a shot, why not? But I think Rojo's the real guy that we're going to see get some of those targets from Tom Brady. And that's going to really elevate his ability. And I see him getting potentially 60% or 65% of those touches overall. And if Vaughn's really in the doghouse, who knows? Are we seeing a guy that gets 70%? And if you're getting 70% of the touches, even if they're limited touches in that offense, that could be scary. So he's still really, really cheap. He's going behind another favorite dice roll or dart throw of mine and Darius Geis. So that's another guy I'm really high on. But Rojo's cheap, man. Like, Vaughn's going pretty high in some of these rookie drafts and startup drafts that we've seen lately. I saw him go pretty high in Scott Fishbowl. Even. I can't do it. I'm definitely all in on Rojo at the price right now and the potential with that offense.
Yeah, I think the price has definitely gotten a little too high on Keyshawn Vaughn, and the price has stayed like right where it needs to be for Ronald Jones. So he's definitely, like, if I play a team where I just happen upon being a 0 RB team, he's definitely a target as a running back 2 for me. And then obviously if you're platooning guys, he could rotate in as your running back 1 depending, but I think there is some pass catching upside. He showed a little bit of explosiveness last year in that facet. It'd be interesting to see if they give it to him, because they still gave a lot to Dare Ogunbowale last year. But I kind of like Rojo. I liked Keyshawn Vaughn coming in too. I thought he was a good red zone runner. I thought he was a better pass catcher than he got credit for. And then he's a bit of an upright runner, but he can definitely get some yardage and banging it. So I kind of liked him coming in, but it's going to be an interesting split there because I think it's going to be spread out. And then Tom Brady is just another wrinkle. But Jordan, I'm really curious to see where you sit with your former quarterback Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers.
Well, I hope he stinks. I hope he gets crushed in the opener. I still like him, but I'm definitely cheering for the Saints. If I had to pick an NFC team, it would definitely be the Saints. Saints are dope, man. The players on that team, I fucking love their team. Kamara, Michael Thomas, they're all jokes. But in regards to Ronald Jones, I think I would still take Jones over Vaughn. I was a big Vaughn fan. Playing in the SEC is not easy, and to run as hard and strong and as well as he did, like, there's a play that will never die. It's Grand Delpit getting embarrassed by Keyshawn Vaughn in the open field. And I've watched that play hundreds of times, and I never get over that one cut. Delpit falls. That's why he fell to the second round. That day that Keyshawn Vaughn juked him, Grand Delpit was not the top safety in the nation anymore. But I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Vaughn too. So I don't really know how it's going to play out. But to Ben's point, Bruce Arians is an old guy. He's going to probably stick with his vet, and he stuck with Ronald Jones last year, even though Ronald Jones did struggle. He had his issues, but he's a good player. And I forget what the stat was. I was trying to dig it up while you guys were talking. But I believe Ronald Jones was second in yards per reception. He averaged 10 yards a reception this season. He had 300 yards and only 30 receptions, which is exceptional for any player. And I'm pretty sure it was second in the league for total yards per reception for running backs. Or was that, or he had a yards after contact stat that was crazy too. But Jones is going to be a good player. But I do still think Vaughn could maybe take the job. You know, like there was a lot of talk about them needing a running back. They took Vaughn. They could have maybe waited a little bit. They could have got someone earlier. But, you know, I believe they traded up for that pick as well to get Vaughn, because that was a spot where they were like, maybe going to take a running back. People thought for sure they would. And didn't he go before Zach Moss? I'm not 100%
yeah,
sure.
I think he did. Yeah, because I think Moss went towards the back of the round. And Keyshawn Vaughn was right around the middle. So, yeah, I think he did.
People were kind of surprised Moss slipped. I mean, I wasn't so much, but I think because I think he got invited to the draft too, which was insane. I was like, yo, he got invited over some people that I actually thought were good. But
the setup.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah, he slipped to the third round. I was like, good thing they didn't have a draft, because you would have been waiting there for 2 days. But yeah, man, I don't know what to do with that backfield. I think to a lot of people's point, I've seen in the chat too, is that like rookies aren't really have a shot this year unless they're really fucking good. Like they're gonna have to be really impressive, have really wide open spots. And I don't see a lot of guys there. Like the only one who really is wide open, Justin Jefferson. That dude is gonna get targets. Like he'll probably see 80 easy. He could be up over 100. But all the other guys, you know, even Rager, he's probably gonna see targets. Yeah. He should see targets, but is he going to go like bananas? I don't know. We're going to see. With these short camps and limited action with the quarterbacks, it's going to be tough. It's harder for everybody. And I think Keyshawn Vaughn is a perfect example of that. There's no way he starts game one. There's no way. He's never worked with the quarterback. He's never been in the offense. He's never really been at practice even. He's just coming in with not knowing a whole lot. And Bruce Arians needs his guys to know what they're doing.
One thing to think about too is, in that Tampa Bay backfield, and I don't know the answer to this, but I was just kind of thinking about as we were talking. What is Vaughn's track record as far as pass blocking and protecting the quarterback?
I'm pretty sure, from what I remember watching his tape, he's decent. Like he's I think a 5th-year senior. So he's been around. You know, he's not a nobody. He's still blocking SEC defensive ends. He's not the best, but he's a pretty good pass catcher too. So if you need him to kind of make a block, he'll probably be fine. And then if you need him to leak out, he's fine doing that too. That's the thing about Vaughn that I think people need to realize, that he can do everything. He maybe can't. He's maybe not Jonathan Taylor as a runner. He's maybe not I don't even know, Christian McCaffrey as a pass catcher, but he can really do a little bit of everything. And I think that includes pass blocking. But like you said, if he misses like Jones did and gets benched, then he's fucked. Like we're not going to see him ever again. But who knows?
You can't miss blocks with Brady.
No, or Bruce Arians.
Yeah, apparently not.
Don't want to piss off the Kangol killer. I love Bruce Arians, man. He's a great coach. Okay, we got another one from Chev here, boys. With the short camps, what top rookie are you most worried about being a bust in year one? We just talked about it a little bit there, obviously. And I think for me, the wide receivers are the ones who it's going to affect most, just because carving out a place in that depth chart, learning the playbook and all the routes, and learning the quarterback's tendencies is going to be a lot harder to adjust to than the running backs are. So bust is pretty strong, because I don't know if these guys are necessarily going to be classified a bust, but I think for me, the one guy that I'm looking at is probably Denzel Mims, and I really like Denzel Mims, and his path is very clear. But I do think that signing Brashad Perriman means that Brashad Perriman is going to get used, and I think Denzel Mims is going to have a bit of a learning curve with being a contested catch kind of guy. He's going to have to work on his routes quite a bit, because he's one of those big guys who's going to go up for the ball, and he's great at that, can be great in the red zone, but I think he's going to have to carve that out, and it's going to take him a little bit longer. And then being in an Adam Gase run offense is going to be just another cherry on top of that. So I think for me, the guy who might disappoint versus the perception of his path to targets is probably Denzel Mims. Where are you guys sitting?
Yeah, for me, I might get a whooping for this one from the community out there, but it's Jerry Jeudy, because I think the talent, the route running, he is an absolute beast, right? But I think that there's so many weapons there, and I think Sutton is really coming into his own and has the head start on him. people are expecting and drafting Judy as if he's going to be the top guy, right? And are we going to see him kind of sit behind a stud a la Calvin Ridley for a few years? And if that's the case, drafting him in the 7th, 8th, 9th spot in the first round, you're going to be a little bit disappointed because you're going to expect that guy to ascend at some point in his rookie deal. And I don't see him passing Sutton. I think Fant is ready to go nuclear at some point with a breakout as well. And Hamler is going to take some targets from the slot area, but Judy's a stud. That's why I think he's going to be a bust, because we're expecting, him coming out. We're looking for a good landing spot, and like this is potentially a elite wide receiver 1 type guy. And with all the talent and what he put on tape, I just don't think he's in the spot to do that. And as much as I love like potential Drew Lock, breakout, is Denver really going to throw that much to be able to feed all these guys? So I think he could be a disappointment from where he's going in drafts and the pedigree that he has. So it's an unpopular pick, but I think Judy is a guy that I haven't drafted him once for those reasons, because I am a big Sutton believer, and I think Sutton is not going to just go away. He's a stud, man. Sutton's a stud. And I'm a big believer in Fant as well. I just think there's too many mouths to feed, and I just don't know what type of transition we're going to see with that Denver offense. I do expect some more passes, but they also brought in Melvin Gordon. So you got Gordon and Lindsey there. So they're still going to run the ball a lot. So I don't see the opportunity to produce at the level that we probably want a guy like Judy to produce.
And their line is way better at run blocking than it is pass blocking as far as PFF grades from last year. They're a really good run blocking unit last year. So I think that's going to help with that two, potentially 3-headed backfield. So how about you, Jay Rich? What are you thinking?
I'm trying to think of players that I don't like. I don't like your Judy pick. I think it's a little misinformed. I like Mims though. So the only thing I would say about your Mims pick, Trav, is that while I like Mims a lot, no, I don't like Mims that much, but I think your point, situation is wide open. But I think the part about Pearman is like, I just think it's going to be like, we're not going to know who's going to play, but they could both play. Yeah, true. If Gase likes them, they could both play, and neither of them have played with Sam Darnold. Neither of them have been in the Gase system. It's kind of just like an open situation, right? But both are really athletic and both can do a lot. So they kind of play the same role, but if for some reason Mims impresses, maybe he plays. But as far as Judy, I mean, Judy's good, man. Like, come on, what are you doing?
He is good, and that's why you're expecting him to be a top dog. But I just don't think that opportunity is going to be there.
Okay, think about it this way: who do you know who Drew Lock played with in college? He played in Missouri, right? Who were his receivers? He played with Emmanuel Hall. Dude is a blazer, 4.4 speed, right outside, 6'1".
I think he's with the Washington now as well.
I don't know. He might be. He was on the Bears, and then
I think he is actually.
Yeah, it was the Bears. Maybe Saints.
So you think about Jerry Jeudy. He can do what Emmanuel Hall can do, but at a higher degree. He can separate better than Emmanuel Hall can. That's where Courtland Sutton's good, but he doesn't do that same type of stuff. He doesn't. And Drew Lock, he's a guy who is known to be skittish in the pocket and doesn't necessarily throw deep balls that often. So you think about, if you're a quarterback, you have a guy like Jerry Jeudy who can get open with ease. You know he's going to get open. He'll maybe run out of the slot, maybe run outside. He should get open with ease. But then on top of that, you have a guy like KJ Hamler blowing up the top. He's not blowing off the top for Courtland Sutton. He's blowing off the top of Jerry Jeudy, right? And so if you see them do stacks, they do crossing routes, they do pick routes. That's all going to be to get those guys open. It's not that I don't think you could be right, but I think that he may like Jeudy more than Sutton quickly. And so if you want to take a shot on Jeudy in like the 10th, 11th, 12th round in redraft, then I think it's worth a shot. In Dynasty, though, he's a little overpriced, in my opinion. I would take Justin Jefferson over him. I would take CeeDee Lamb, and I would take Rager over him, all because of situation and talent, right? Combination of both. Rager's got situation. Jefferson has a situation. CeeDee has talent. So we're talking those guys for bust. But then you think about other first-round guys. I actually love the first round. But if there's one guy I'd honestly pick to be a bust, it'd be Joe Burrow. He's overrated as hell. He's so overrated. People are taking him as a top 12 quarterback. He could be a top 12 quarterback. But for me, Yes, Josh, you're right. Albert O was Drew Lock's college tight end.
That's
People
his
need to
boy.
understand that. That's his man.
I think they were
We're talking about-
roommates. I think they were roommates.
That's a big factor too. As much as you want to love Fant, Albert O, right? I didn't bring it up. I was going to leave it, but it still matters because the chemistry is there, right? That's your Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. But Fant isn't Gronk. He's Aaron Hernandez. Albert O is Gronk. And he still runs a 4.5 or 4.6 or whatever. Dude blew up the combine. But for me, it's Burrow, because as much as I loved Joe Burrow, I loved watching everything about Joe Burrow, he's just going way too high in drafts, way too high. He's not Kyler Murray. He's just not. And as much as I love him for Dynasty, I love him long-term, the Bengals may be a little better this season. They bolstered the defense a little bit. They added a few weapons. They should have AJ Green back if he wants to play for them. But I just don't love Joe Burrow's prospects coming to the situation. Yeah, he had the playbook already, but he's not working with the coaches. He's not doing these things. Unless he's really, really good and really, really smart, he's going to get beat up. And he plays in a tough division. He's going to have a tough schedule more than likely because of that division. And it's going to be rough for him. And like all these guys that are drafting him really, really high, really, really high. It's like, why aren't you taking a Josh Allen or a Daniel Jones who's already done it in the NFL, especially in redraft? They have probably a higher rushing upside, and they have better weapons. I think the weapons are overrated because I'm not a big T. Higgins fan myself. Obviously, I love AJ Green. I think Tyler Boyd's fine. He does what he does really well. They don't really have tight ends they use, and people are iffy on Joe Mixon. I love Joe Mixon in college. I think he's a great running back, but he just hasn't done it yet. So is it Zach Taylor? Is it Joe Mixon? Is Zach Taylor a good coach? We don't even know. Right? Is he, or did, like you talk about garbage time? Bengals are OGs of garbage time. Maybe that boosts Joe Burrow a little bit, but I don't know, man. I see people projecting him for 4,000 yards. 4,000 yards. And I'm like, dude, come on.
Yikes.
Like,
yeah, I got him as my quarterback 22 right now for 2020.
That's perfect. You know, even if you want to put him in like 18, 17, because you maybe get that garbage time boost, I'm cool with that. But some people have him going like almost top 12. I'm like, he's not Kyler Murray. Like, Kyler Murray's arm talent is insane. You know, like, we know they're going to pass a ton. And, like, especially if the Bengals – I haven't looked at their game log. But I know at the beginning of the year, they threw the ball, like, 50 times a game. But then it really it really went down, right? Like, the first game against Seattle was, like, 45-42. John Ross had 300 yards or something like that. It was a crazy game. But – I just don't know what they're going to do this year. I don't know what they're going to be, and I'm not trying to project it either. It's no different than the Carolina situation if you want to get into that. I don't like trying to project it. I don't like trying to guess. I don't like trying to figure it out. I'm cool. For me, it's take the cheapest guy. You know, if it's T. Higgins or if it's obviously Tyler Boyd, whoever it is, take the cheapest guy because there's going to be viable pieces, but don't try and guess. It's just not worth it. Because if you start reaching, you're going to end up taking guys that bust out or aren't worth it. Take the cheaper guys. You'll probably get a better return, or at least get a better return in your earlier rounds. Take safer guys and then take the cheaper guys later. And it's no different than Houston. Same situation. You know, just don't try and guess it. Take the guy that's the cheapest, shoot your shot at the cheapest guy, and see what happens because it's not worth it to try and guess.
For sure. Okay, check this one out, fellas. What would you give to move up to 317 from 409? I think I might know where that one comes from.
Isaac, I messaged you, man.
And then he says 2020 picks. Are you guys making a deal on air here? That would be a sweet way to ride
on air. Right now, Isaac, if you're on right now, I will throw in my second and my third next year on top of my fourth round pick to move up to that late third round pick. I got to come get my guy. You already called me out on it.
2021 second. There's going to be some value there.
And my third. Yeah.
And so if it's the 317, how many teams are in that league? Is it 32?
It's a 24 teams, but it's double copy.
So it's 2 copy?
So he's moving back 16 picks for a second and a third.
And so roughly half of that, like 8, right? Because of the double.
True that, Pull the trigger, Isaac. Pull that trigger, bud.
I think it's honestly, if you think about who you get in the second round, that's not bad. I
don't want to give it up, but I have to because you already know I talked about my boy on here. I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna go get my boy DK. If I get
Yeah.
this pick, that's what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty close.
He knows it.
If you want to do something like that, then I would just I'm not a big fan of trading in draft like that. But I would usually offer pick swaps, like if you want to do like maybe a 6th round upgrade and 8th round upgrade, something like that, like where you get, half a round, a full round kind of thing. That's the kind of trades I like to make. Especially when you guys
that's
are
another option 17,
too. It's not a lot of spots. We're talking about basically
for sure
less than a round. So if you want to maybe offer whatever one you're higher at than him, I usually go like maybe 7th round, 9th round, or 6th round, 8th round to kind of get up. That way you're getting that value in pick, especially moving up in the 6th or the 7th. There's going to be value in Superflex. And then same value. 9th, 10th, you're going to want to have those higher picks, and especially because you'll have closer back-to-back picks as well. You'll be moving up in those rounds to make that gap that you had before a little bit smaller. So it allows you to play the board a bit more.
I don't mind moving back in those situations either, where you take those later picks to move back a bit as well, because and moving back like within a tier, right? So if I can move back but stay within a tier of players and move a pick up like 5 or 6 picks later, I don't mind that as well. And then, but yeah, I just like to be a little bit careful that I'm not trading just because everybody else is trading, because sometimes the trading in draft gets a little wild and you just want to get in on the action. So you just got to be careful that you're not just throwing trades out there and thinking about the future as well as the present, because it's pretty fun when the trade talks are flying mid draft.
Yeah. So Isaac has the advantage on me right now, knowing who I want to go get, and also knowing that his target, there's 2 guys left. So he gets to really pick up some great talent in that 2021 class, and at the same time, his guy is probably still going to fall to him at that spot. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, man, you target like a
hopefully Isaac. There. Hopefully, I mean, you got to tell me Isaac. Yeah, but I gotta reach a little bit from my guy in the 3rd. Why not?
It's crazy.
Popping it up here.
Insane. DK's insane.
Isaac, I'm tossing the ball in your court to make the trade on air, my man.
Yeah, let me know. It's on there. It's official. The offer is official.
Boom.
It's there, baby.
Yep. That's beauty. I'm just going to read off a couple more comments we had here, guys. We had a couple people commenting. Yeah. There was one from Drew as well. Ben, he said, "I love you." I think maybe that came after my wife was on too. He was just making sure that his presence was known as a power couple within this live stream. So Drew, we see you, my man. We see you. Here's a good one. Jimmy Lou with Dynasty startup Kenny G or Allen Robinson. So let's maybe we'll try and rapid fire a little bit on a couple of these fellas if we got some. Cool. Jimmy G, or sorry, Kenny G or A-Rob. There we go. From Jimmy Lou. So who are you taking, Rich? I see you wincing, man.
Kenny G. I think Kenny G. I think I got to do it. I think I got to take Kenny G. Wasn't the biggest Kenny G fan for a couple of years. I didn't really own him, didn't really look into him, didn't really scout him that much. I knew he was great talent. I beyond his rookie tape, I didn't really see what he did in the NFL. But more recently, I've been diving into him a lot more, and I've become a big fan. I'm a big Allen Robinson fan. But I think Kenny G's got more like lasting power. And I really don't believe in Foles that much, to be honest. I think Robinson could be a wide receiver 1 this year, but I think Kenny G's got it a bit longer. The only reason why I might take Allen Robinson is because I think he can do a little bit more with less. Like if Stafford retires, then I'm concerned, right? But Allen Robinson's always done it with bums. So if you're gonna lean on one thing, AR should probably be a little bit more consistent as far as no matter who his quarterback is. Kenny G may be quarterback dependent, but I personally don't believe he is. I think he'll probably leave Detroit, especially if they don't have a quarterback.
I'm Kenny G on this one too. I just think the way that he commands the targets, the way that he's such a good red zone threat. He also was pretty good when David Blau was in there last year, so he can do it with some garbage quarterback play, although it's a smaller sample size. So I'm team Kenny G on this one, but I love me some A-Rob as well for the fact that he's just done so much good stuff with garbage quarterback play. I just love that guy. Just like thinking about the perseverance of being elite, pretty much elite at your position, and you're getting dragged down a little bit by that. So what about you, Ben? Kenny G or A-Rob?
I'm going to A-Rob. He showed us what he can
Nice.
do with a trash quarterback situation. Kenny G, yes, he did. But I think the underrated piece for me here is Detroit just picked up Swift. And I think that is going to take away some targets. Swift is going way too low in some drafts right now. And I think, he'll pick up some targets. But, a healthy Stafford, you can't really go wrong with either of these guys. They're both 26. I do think A-Rob has a chance at a top 7 year overall because Chicago is just trash. And I don't see them really getting better this year. And if they're extremely trash, then maybe they're getting one of those quarterbacks we talked about earlier. They're just like, forget it. All right, we're out now. Trubisky, move on. Foles, move on. Let's go get one of these first-round quarterback situations. And then that could be real nice for A-Rob too. But what A-Rob did with just a horrendous QB situation, I'm A-Rob on this one.
So just to kind of counter that a little bit, and the only reason why that at one point I forgot about as I was speaking before, but if Kenny G does stay and Matt Stafford is healthy, Marvin Jones is probably gone next year, which means Kenny G is going to get like 160 targets. And so even beyond this year, this year he should still be really good. He'll get a lot of targets. He goes high in sort of like I took him in Scott Fishbowl, I think wide receiver 7, because he's gonna get a lot of targets. You talk about Chicago being bad. They play good defense though. They're still gonna run the ball a lot. Detroit's just bad. They're just bad. Like they're just brutal. And maybe Patricia
is going to pump up David Montgomery.
No, I'm saying I'm not saying he's good, but they'll still run the ball. Like it's still Chicago. They're gonna run the ball. Maybe David Montgomery's gonna be good. I don't know. I mean, he had the most forced missed tackles in college 2 straight years. Just for what it's worth. He didn't look good last year, but maybe he'll get it right this year. But I think that's where Kenny G, he could really explode if Marvin Jones leaves, and then they lean on Hawkinson and Kenny G. That there's no way he doesn't see a shitload of targets if that's the case. Because this year Marvin Jones will get his 100 and he'll be a beast. If you're not buying Marvin Jones, I don't know what you're doing because he's dirt cheap, and he's going to be a great asset for Dynasty because people are just writing him off. But after this year, Kenny G, if he stays, he could be great asset, or he goes to a better team, which still you're probably winning, right? He gets to pick a situation, hopefully, and he'll be better.
All right, guys, here it is. Trade is accepted. The offer has been sent. There it is.
My guy, Isaac.
That's dope.
DK Metcalf.
I just put the pick. The pick is in. No surprise, DK Metcalf.
Love it. Thank you very much, Isaac, for participating in the live stream and making this happen. Nice trade, fellas. Nicely done.
Yeah, never done a live trade. That's a first right there. I appreciate you, Isaac.
That's sick. Right on, fellas. That gets to the end of our comments there. What do you guys think? How's your nights looking? Do you think that's a good nightcap for the live stream, is to end it on a trade accepted, or what?
It's up to you guys, man. I'm good to go.
That's the best right there.
I'm good to go.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I'll start with DK, end with DK.
Yeah. Right on. Well, I probably got another 10 minutes or so in me, fellas. If that's cool.
That's all good,
guys. But for sure.
It's all good, man.
Isaac is pumped, as you can see on that trade deal.
Yeah.
Ben. Very cool, guys. That's awesome. And look at Dave's getting fired up.
Yeah, go follow Isaac, you guys, at Dynasty Phoenix, at Dynasty PHX. Follow him. Please do.
What are you talking about, man? Why aren't we giving you the shout outs? You're almost at that 2K. I've been trying to get you that 2K.
That's right. Man, and when I checked just before we came on here, you were only about 39 away, because I saw Jordan's post there.
Crazy.
So you're just about at the 2K mark, my man. So big congrats on that.
I got clout.
Man,
yeah,
29 away.
Yeah,
damn.
I appreciate you guys.
Bump. That's awesome.
I'm really out here like what bone.
Yeah.
I saw Dingus said, "Where's my hype man?"
Yeah, Dingus is
looking
for me.
Dingus is the man. I love Matt. He's a good guy.
He's awesome.
That's beauty.
That's dope.
Okay, somebody wants Super Bowl predictions here. Hello, FFB barbecue. What's going on? 2 of my favorite things: fantasy football and barbecuing. So yeah, hey, who wants to go first on their Super Bowl prediction? I got to think about this for a second here.
Are we going fandom, Or are we going like the game I want to see, or the game I think will happen?
I think I don't know. What do you think? I personally go with realistic. What's the realistic game that's going to happen? But I'm down for whatever.
So the game that I think will happen, I honestly think we could see a Super Bowl rematch. I think that's in the cards. The NFC, I mean, I want to pick the Chiefs. It's pretty easy to pick them to repeat as AFC champs. I'm not really seeing anyone that can challenge them right now. They have pretty much everyone intact. They also have a deep receiving core. Like if Tyreek Hill gets hurt, they're good. If their running back gets hurt, they're good. If Pat Mahomes gets hurt, well, they're fucked. But every team would be fucked if that happens. So that's not a big deal. Yeah. But so Chiefs should get through. The only problem is who the hell is going to come out of the NFC? It's not going to be the Packers. It's not going to be the Vikings. I want to see the Rams bounce back. But I don't know what we're going to see from them. But I fucking love the Seahawks. I love the Seahawks. I watch Seahawks almost every week.
Yeah,
Russ just Russ just gets it done, man. I fucking love that guy. It's probably, for me, NFC champ, it's between the Seahawks and the Saints. That's the game I want to see more than anything. A lot of people pick the Saints because they have a loaded defense. They have good weapons now, and I think Emmanuel Sanders is going to make a big difference for that offense. Don't write off Latavius Murray. He's a good running back in that offense. Sure. Alvin Kamara, obviously, stud. Emmanuel Sanders is going to do great things. Hopefully, Jared Cook's going to be there doing great things. Michael Thomas going to be Michael Thomas. They have a lot of guys there, but people need to remember about the defense. The defense held them up when Teddy was quarterback. If that defense is elite and they don't do anything stupid and Drew doesn't fuck up in the playoffs, they should go to the Super Bowl. But I do want to see Russ and see what he can do because he's must-watch TV every week. If you're watching any game, you need to watch Russ play. I don't care what you're doing, who your team is. You got to watch Russ play every week because what he does is just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And that's the team I want to see make it. But I think the Saints are probably more talented. And I don't know, Ben, what your thoughts are on the Seattle defense. I think they're okay. I think they play better than their talent, and the offense does too, but that's Russ. But on D, I'm not really sure kind of what your thoughts are on that if you want to talk about Seattle a little bit and then go into your pick.
Yeah, so I do have Seattle going to the Super Bowl from the NFC, and I actually have them knocking off Dallas on the way there. I think Dallas is a team that's going to come in and take a couple games to figure it out, but they just got so much talent, and I think having the new coach there is going to be refreshing for that team, and I think they're all going to buy in, so I could see Dallas as a serious contender this year. But I'm going to tell you, I think that the Seattle team that we're going to see in the Super Bowl is not going to be the team that we see on the roster today. I do think that they're going to acquire Jamal Adams in a trade. I think that's coming. Okay. Dang. I think that you're going to see
that's a big trade.
No doubt.
We're going to sign another defensive end. Okay. And we're going to sign another defensive end. It's probably not going to be Clowney, although it could be. It's possible it could be Clowney on a 1-year deal. But Ziggy. I don't think it's going to be Clowney. I think it's going to be Griffin. So I think between adding an Adams and a Griffin, their Super Bowl prediction is going to go through the roof with a guy like Russ. It's crazy. Yeah, no on the Saints, Drew. I think it's going to be the end of the other Drew. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be Seattle, and I think they're going to go against the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to figure out a way to get a little better. They're just tough, and I do think they're a team that can take it to Kansas City. Kansas City's the easy pick. So would it surprise me to see Kansas City? No. But I think the Ravens will be in the mix. I think the Titans will be there, causing some problems for people. They're an upset pick for me. But I think it's going to be the Ravens, and I would love to see Russ versus Lamar Jackson after Lamar potentially picks up another MVP, and those two going at it, because I think Russ is holding that one. He's a motivated guy already, but to lose the MVP, probably rightfully so. But with the start he had, he was definitely in that conversation. I'll be excited, and I think so. My pick is Seahawks Ravens in the Super Bowl.
See, I see you hedging a little bit. Do you know why? Because Russ can't beat Mahomes. He's not going to beat Mahomes, but he can beat Lamar.
Last time Kansas City came to Seattle, we did beat Mahomes. So
yeah, but that's different. That's the 12 right there. That's the home field.
That's all right, baby.
But
It happened. You
In
can make all
neutral,
these.
where's Super Bowl this year?
I'll take.
Where's Super
Hey,
Bowl this
they
year?
could take it.
I don't even
Pete
know.
Carroll's a big game coach. You don't
No,
want to
he
go
didn't.
against Pete Carroll in a big
No.
game.
Okay, come on. What, do you not see that stat? You not hear that stat about the Chiefs? Every time they were down 10 points, what happened? 5-0.
Yeah, they come back. Andy Reid's a phenomenal coach. That dude, he's amazing.
Like, it's chalk. It's easy, but they're so good, man. They're so good.
They're
and
so
they got
good.
better.
Yeah.
And
Their defense got better too. Their defense
their whole team
really
got
good
better
with that pass rush, and that was a big factor in kind of matching up to the level of that offense. So I think the Chiefs are going to be hard to stop. It's going to be a toss up between the Chiefs and the Ravens. I think the Chiefs probably have the edge. I think a dark horse team for the Super Bowl could be on the back of their defense. The Steelers could be a bit of a dark horse if Ben can come back and play well. That defense is elite, in my opinion, one of the best defenses in the league. So I think the Steelers could be a dark horse coming out of the AFC. But yeah, I think for me, it's probably the Chiefs once again. And from the NFC, it could go Niners, it could go Seahawks. I think the Saints are definitely one of the NFC championship teams. And then man, that's tricky. And then Dallas is really good too. So let me just say Saints, because I can't decide on the other team that's in the NFC championship, but I think the Saints are going to do it because just the way that they've kind of retooled where they needed to, and they're looking like they're going to light it up this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have the most well-rounded roster for sure. The Saints have the best roster probably in the NFL.
Too. Saints and Chiefs in the Super Bowl would be dirty if they were healthy.
Man, be crazy, right? Because it's just that offense for the Saints is so good. Defense for the Saints is so good. We'll just see like what's going to happen. But big fan of both those teams. But I just think the Chiefs for sure they've got to be the team that goes through. Mm-hmm. The Ravens can't keep up. If Lamar regresses, like I just don't know what he's gonna do as a passer, honestly. Like, people like Hollywood, I'm kind of iffy on it myself. So I don't know. What do you guys think of Hollywood?
I like him
a lot.
I like Boykin. I like Boykin this year for a big breakout. And I think Duvernay, as the season goes on, is going to get moved around. He's a playmaker. So
the picks,
I do think they have some more weapons. And here's the big piece for me why I think the Ravens are going to be so much better is I think Dobbins as well. I think they're just going to continue to run that ball. You throw Dobbins as the season goes on, like Ingram's going to get his, but Dobbins going to start to eat. I think right out of the gates, you're going to see 10 carries a game for Dobbins, and it's going to probably get up to that 15 carry mark as the season goes on. And if you got two fresh, healthy running backs, that's tough to throw with Lamar. So they can just continue to run it at hey, we're going to run right now, and they're going to do it and be successful. So it just throws a team like Kansas City off, right? Kansas City is a rhythm team. We saw them get in some battles where, a team's running the ball against them and it just takes away the flow of the game. That's what Seattle was really, really good at when we had a couple Super Bowl runs. So that's why I'm picking the Ravens. I just think that running the ball is fun to watch the offense of Kansas City. And should they make it? Absolutely. They're crazy talented. But running the ball, man, and adding someone like Dobbins to come behind Ingram as the season goes on is going to be it's going to be scary to watch.
Yeah, man. We'll see how Andy adjusts, right? Because to me, it's like that's the only one he has to care about. Yeah. How do I stop Lamar? That's it. Like the Ravens offense is great. JK is dope. Mark Ingram even is a good running back for what he can do. And so it just kind of depends on, is Andy going to be ready for that game? No, I think he'll be fine. I'm not worried about the health. For me, it's for fantasy, it's the volume. People were like, oh, he could be a wide receiver 1, this or that. Sure, he could, but it's like, how many targets are you going to get? 75? Like 80? Yeah. I know his pace was great.
Mark Andrews is going to eat too. Yeah.
But even him, do you guys like his price? I'm iffy on it, man.
His price is getting up there. Like people are taking him in like fourth round kind of thing. That's too much for me.
Price.
I think he could get the 90 targets, but like for that price, I'll just go elsewhere and take like a wide
You're paying for touchdowns too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you're paying to hoping he gets those touchdowns. And I think to your point about Boykin is dumb athletic. It's like people forgot who he is. Like I wasn't the biggest Boykin fan, but he's crazy athletic. If he gets those red zone targets instead of Andrews for some reason, who knows? And like I don't really know what to make of that offense. I like Hollywood, I do, but if he's not running deep, if he's not doing all these things, he's going to be single covered, which thankfully for him is crazy. But if Boykin single covered and Duvernay single covered, they should get targets because it should be open. You know, like Andrews could get double covered. He's already in the middle anyways. And then you think Hollywood single, Duvernay single, Boykin single.
It's a lot of weapons.
It's a lot of guys. It's a lot of guys. And just who are going to use? I don't know, man. I don't know. But I think that chances of buying a Boykin or a Duvernay, if you want to really take that dart throw, better off than trying to buy Hollywood a little bit earlier. But it depends on price. Just depends on price. If you get in like 7th round, you're probably good.
Yeah.
But I'm not. Redraft values, I'm terrible at knowing what redraft values are. Too much Dynasty in my life.
What's redraft?
Yeah, Hollywood, man. It's hard. He's a tough buy just because he played a little bit out of the slot too. And Ty dropped a stat on one of our pods where he actually was tied for the league lead in slot touchdowns. Hollywood Brown was with 6 touchdowns. But you know, Mark Andrews is playing there. Duvernay is going to play out of the slot most likely. He's an after the catch guy, and yeah, it's really tricky. And then when they go to those 3 tight end sets and they only have 1 wide out on the field, who's going to be the one wide out? Is it going to be Hollywood with his size? Because I'm not sure it is. If they want to run the ball and have a blocker out there, I don't think it's necessarily going to be Hollywood Brown. I think Willie Snead's still even on the roster, which is kind of gross, but he kind of peppered in annoyingly last year as well. So yeah, exactly. He's just a good real life football player. So the Ravens offense is one to watch, and I think some of that touchdown efficiency for Lamar Jackson with 36 touchdowns on such low volume is going to be really tough for him to beat. So he's going to need to maintain that rushing ability to be anywhere close to what he was. So I think there might be a little bit of too much hype on that offense, but I still like having pieces of it myself. So who am I to talk, right?
Oh, for sure. I just think it's like Lamar or bust for me. I have no problem taking Lamar if you think he's going to be as good as last year as far as his rushing goes, like 1,100 yards, and then maybe touchdowns come down. Fine. Maybe the passing volume goes up. It's more so the receivers. We could see, to your point, Duvernay gets some touchdowns, Boykin gets some touchdowns, and then maybe Nick Boyle gets more involved, which nobody wants, but no one's accounting for it, right? He may just get more involved because they run 2 tight end sets and they use both of them. So what are we going to see? And to your point about Snead, he still may get 60 targets. Those are 60 targets that aren't going to guys that we like. So who knows? You know, I think he only threw the ball 400 times last year. That's not enough.
No.
You know? So we'll see. And I know even for Hollywood, I was looking at his game log the other day, and it's like, it's brutal. It's so bad. He missed some time as well, but it's like first couple of games, he was kind of on fire, and then he got hurt, and then he was just like kind of plodding along, had some high target games, but with only 2 catches and 20 yards or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's hard to project him going forward.
Yeah, he's that guy you want as your wide receiver 3 or your flex spot, because he can win you those weeks, but you don't want to put it all on Hollywood because then you're going to be in trouble for consistency.
Yeah.
You want some options. But that backfield, though, boys, is one that I am buying. I think J.K. Dobbins is a top 15 dynasty running back for me right now. So I am all in on J.K. Dobbins. I just think after this year,
me too.
Get Mark Andrews out of there and give most of that work to J.K. Dobbins. Like, he's just going to light it up with Lamar Jackson. And even this season, Gus Edwards had top 20 red zone carries last year. So I think if those can go to Dobbins and he can convert more, because Gus Edwards was disgustingly awful on those red zone carries, I think Dobbins can show up as early as midway through this season for me. So it's Dobbins and Lamar for me is where I'm going on the Baltimore offense.
For sure.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, Dobbins is a tough buy for me right now. He's a tough buy. I'm not there yet. If it was draft, I'd be cool with it. But in startups, he goes like 3rd round sometimes, 4th round.
Really? I haven't seen him going that high. I've seen him
go high.
But I haven't had a startup for a while.
Yeah,
the league that I just did the trade in, both copies of Dobbins is gone already in the 3rd. Both copies.
Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't seen that. That's the first time I saw that. But
for a guy you're not going to get this year, like at all. It's just
I might bump the break on that a little bit. Yeah, it's hard to
rookie drafts. If you have the pieces, you're good. But if you don't and you need them, it's a waste of a pick.
Yeah,
even though you have them.
It's hard to be super happy about your roster going into year 1, 2 when you start taking shots on those guys that early, because then you don't have the upper echelon guys. Like, you're kind of basically pigeonholing yourself into waiting a year. So it's a tricky pick to make in the 3rd round.
Yeah, you got to be rebuilding basically off the jump, unless somehow he takes over, which he probably won't take over.
He needs an injury. He just needs an injury.
Yeah. He's a league winner if he gets an injury. If Ingram gets injured. Yeah,
and Ingram don't get hurt too much either. Not really. He's been, since Alabama days, man. The guy just runs. That's it.
He's pretty durable.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Killer, fellas. What's this here? Dave took Dobbins in the third in one league. Hey, I think after this season, he probably will be worth that. I have no problem with being a year early, so I'm cool with that, Dave.
I think if you're a rebuild team, getting Dobbins around that is not crazy, but because you're going to have less points this year from him, because Ingram's probably going to get the majority of the load, so you're going to get a higher draft pick next year. So there's a little bit of strategy, but if you're contending, that's tough. That's real tough
for sure. Cool, fellas. Well, I think I might have to call it an evening. So I'm sorry to let you guys go because this has been an absolute blast. We had some pretty good action in the chat. It was a very, very impromptu session. I think we set it up within 2 hours, maybe, if not even an hour.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I think all things considered, we did pretty well. And yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on with, very no notice and no structure. I didn't send you guys anything and we just kind of went. So, hey, I really appreciate you guys doing that and jumping on. And I think we're going to have to do this again real soon for sure and get maybe some more of the boys on. And Dave here is saying that I sound like such a Canadian. Well, we are all Canadians, my man.
Oh, yeah.
I am game for that. And we're going to keep that rolling. Yeah. Basketball Canada right there. Got some Jays there. Got some Jays right there as well. So hey, we're rocking it out. Hey, Jordan, I'm sure you got some Jays stuff somewhere in your house, right?
I don't. I'm a Sox fan.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I know. I got Mookie Betts' jersey in my closet, actually, right here beside.
Mookie's pretty dope, but I can't get down with the Bo Sox, but that's fair. That's cool. We'll save that for the baseball pod, right?
Yeah.
Right on, guys. So, Jordan, why don't you just take a couple of minutes before we get out of here and let everybody know what you're working on, where to find you?
Man, so I do a lot of shit, basically. So if you don't know me, you've probably seen something I've done somewhere. Oh, that just fucking freeze. Oh no.
You're golden, buddy.
Am I good? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're golden.
You probably see something I do. So I'm hoping to have a piece drop tomorrow. So if you don't follow me on Twitter at your boy J Rich. You'll see that. We'll see. I think it's coming out tomorrow, but I haven't got clarification on it. It's a new announcement for Fade the Noise. And then I do over at Destination Devy's Patreon, patreon.com/allgas. I put out a show on the Destination Devy YouTube channel from time to time. It's supposed to be weekly, but I've been a little busy. So I've been slacking on that a little bit, but I've been trying to get back on that. And then what else do I do, man? Fuck, I don't even know. I do a lot of stuff. If you need anything, let me know. I do a lot of video stuff, graphics work, special effects, all that kind of shit.
What's that new site URL?
Oh, jordanrichards.ca. Yes, sir.
Visit that.
Check it out.
I had a chance to check it out. It looks really fresh, my man. So anybody who needs any sort of visual stuff, if you need any sort of, if you need to bring your business or whatever you're working on to another echelon, go to jordanrichards.ca and check out Jordan's work. He can make it happen for you for sure.
Graphic shit, if you need Instagram stuff, photography stuff, editing, whatever, man. I do a lot of different shit.
Yeah.
So pick my brain. DMs are open. Always let me know. Appreciate you guys having me on, obviously. And let's see what Ben's up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. Ben, where are you at, man? You're doing lots these days.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just kind of went for the full-on dive into the fantasy community. I've been playing for, Dynasty Life for about 10 years now. And I appreciate you see Andrew in there, but Drew Dotson, my co-host on the Dynasty Playbook, picked me up to revive the Dynasty Playbook. It was gone since 2017. We now got 5 episodes on the books. So you're actually going to see 3 episodes over the next, 4 to 5 days get launched, starting with our episode with you, Trav, the True North team, as well as Ty. It was a blast. Super stoked. You guys were our first ever guest for the rebooted Dynasty Playbook. So that was just such a pleasure. We had such a great time. Then we also got an episode with Marcus Grant, and we brought James Coe, who's not with NFL Network anymore, but kind of brought those two back together for like a little reunion show with us. So that was crazy. So much fun. And then we just got done with an episode with Jay Rich's boy, Ray GQ from Destination Devy. So we're just trying to pump as much content as we can into the community. We're trying to have fun. We're trying to give you the snack takes, not just your football stuff, but we got to tell you what you should be eating out there and what you should just avoid altogether, because that's important. Got to have a happy stomach as well. But it's crazy. So yeah, you can catch me at Mr_EBY and at Dynasty Playbook is the podcast there, and at my co-host is at Drew Dotson NFL. But find either of us through that Dynasty Playbook, and then obviously we're working on some cool stuff for Canada right now with Jay Rich and Trav here and some other guys, and so we're hoping to continue to just build on this amazing community that we have here up north, and bring our friends from down south up for some cool events in the future. And there's some great stuff coming. So, COVID is really tough on everybody. So, wear your mask where you can, be safe, do what you can to just get in the books and make yourself better right now. Use this time to reconnect with your family, reconnect with what's important to you. I've personally had a big time career change and just figuring it out. And this stuff ain't easy. It's not easy for anybody. So just put positivity out there, because, we all got different opinions on stuff, and that's great. But, just make yourself better, make your community better, and let's get it. I'm excited. Some great stuff is going to come from these tough times. I promise you that, but let's do it together. So.
I love that, dude. And I've been one of the lucky ones who hasn't had any sort of interruption in my work and whatnot. So I feel extremely lucky for that. And anybody else who's not necessarily had that kind of luck, definitely keep pushing, because we're going to come through this. And and if you're into fantasy football, come along for the ride with us. Check us out on Twitter. Jordan's been doing awesome work. Like he said, he's got his hands in a ton of cookie jars, and he's doing amazing work out there. And I got to say that in getting into the YouTube stuff here, I've bounced a lot of things off of Jordan, and like he says, his DMs are open for stuff like that. And so I appreciate the help in that with my video editing, kind of dipping my toes into that, because it's been kind of a different world, especially compared to podcast editing. And then Ben, thanks for having us on the Dynasty Playbook. That was a great time with you and Drew, and it was nice to represent True North. And I think we put a pretty good epi on. So, and it's an honor to be right before James Coe and Marcus Grant as well. So that was really cool to come on with you guys, and we're going to do these more often, fellas. So I don't think this is the last time whatsoever. So anybody who watched, we really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning into the TNFF network. Make sure you check out the other videos on there. Give us a subscribe. Sorry, I'm getting lost in my
sub
word.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Sub that. So give that a sub, and then go to Twitter and follow us at True North FFB. So really appreciate everyone joining, and we'll be back with one of these real soon. Thanks, fellas. Peace.